Let's go.
Welcome to Citizen. We got a special guest today, Will Reusch. You are a former teacher, and I don't know what the fuck you do now, actually.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Yeah.
We'll discover that today.
All right. Yeah. Still in education.
Yeah. How's it going?
It's going well, man. Thanks for having me in.
Yeah.
I mean, just lifelong educator, but this system's so broken.
Yeah, it
It's
is.
so crazy, and not enough people are talking about it. So now I'm teaching online to homeschool communities, and I'm building a school in LA and trying to be the change, right?
Yeah. Let's go back to the beginning. Did you grow up in LA?
No. I grew up in Pennsylvania. So I grew up in Pennsylvania, went to school at Penn State, graduated, then moved out to LA because it was beautiful. I mean, I moved out in 2006. It was awesome. It was great. You know, lived right at the beach in Redondo Beach and kind of enjoyed life out there. And then got into education, started teaching public schools and charter schools and started seeing the writing on the walls. Went to a private school to get out of the crazy public school system. And then the private schools get crazy too. So now I'm kind of doing my own thing within education because I think there's enough parents that recognize the problems and they don't know where to go. So I thought I'd try to give them another option because parents are like, well, what do I do? There's nothing else. I just have to go to the public school. It's like, you don't have to. And homeschool's growing. You see the trends and everything like that. So now I'm just serving them.
Yeah. I mean, there's definitely a market for it now. And you, what did you study at Penn State? Just education?
Yeah. Secondary education, social studies, minor in history.
And then did you get a graduate degree as well?
Nope. I hate school. Basically, I never liked school, which I think makes me good at what I do because I recognize the plight of a 16-year-old who's just sitting in a classroom listening to some dork talk about things that they're excited about, but there's no connection in their life.
Right. Yeah. So is that part of the job for you is to try to find a way to make it connected to their life?
100%. I mean, that's the job of a teacher, especially with like AI and the internet now. It's not like the teacher has all the information. They're not the keeper of information. It's just their job, the way I see it, is to connect this information to your life. Here's how learning about the War of 1812 will serve you now as a 16-year-old and then when you're 25, 35, 45 in the future, which is not what happens. They just talk about how the White House burned down and, you know, it's the Revolutionary War Part 2 and kids don't care. Teenagers especially do not care, but young kids too. They don't care. They care about things that are going on in their life, how they can serve. Like as adults, we don't listen to a podcast or read a book that we don't think will serve us in some way.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, it's you're exchanging your time for it, right?
Yeah.
They are captured.
Yeah.
Which is a completely different thing. So how do you convince? You deal with tweens and teens. I guess mostly teens if you're in high school.
Yeah. Totally.
How do you convince a teenager who would rather be doing literally anything else that is valuable time spent? You know what I mean? That's a tough thing. It's a tough thing to get adults to agree to that. And, but somebody who's there by force, I guess, it's a totally different story.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, but there are reasons why we learn history. I mean, you talk about history a lot, Dan. Like, the whole point is to learn from the lessons, the successes and failures of the past, to apply it to the present and the future. And so many problems that we have now is because people didn't see like, oh, well, this happened before, and then they just touch the top of the stove, burn themselves, and they just forget that it's hot, and they touch it again and then again and again and again. So they don't see these patterns of history occurring. So it's not that hard. The War of 1812 is, you're in school and you get into a fist fight with a kid. And he's smaller than you, but somehow he catches you and he knocks you out. And now you have to sit in the classroom next to him for the rest of the year. It's like, you're going to fight again. You can't just still be next to me. And that's, that was America and Great Britain. And when they see these understand, I'm not talking just about history. It's talking about human behaviors and things like that. And that seems to resonate a lot better.
Yeah, that's why I think I, for whatever reason, recognized that from a pretty young age. So when I got out of high school, I went to seminary, even though I'm not religious, because I felt like...
Like you weren't religious at the time?
No.
Oh, interesting.
I felt like understanding how people come to terms with their own existence in the universe was probably a pretty good idea.
Yeah.
Right? And then it has the added benefit of... mirroring history in many ways, in the West especially. I don't know so much about the East. Like if you study Confucianism, you're not going to get a treatise on Chinese history necessarily. Or Buddhism, but if you study Judaism and its history, you're going to talk about the Romans. If you study the Christian church, you're going to talk about every civilization since.
Yeah.
Right. Including the things that led to the liberty movement in general, which are like the Protestant or the serf rebellions, the Magna Carta, the Protestant Reformation, all that stuff. The Protestant church is in parallel to the liberty movement, right?
Yeah. 100%.
So it's like that made sense to me at the time, but I'm a weirdo, right? So getting a normal kid who just wants to play video games or whatever they do now to get involved in that is something entirely different. I don't envy people that have that responsibility right now.
Yeah, but it's a fight that's worth fighting for, I think, and just there's not enough people because it seems so hopeless that there's not enough people fighting for it. And I think just given my background, I was like, all right, well, I seem to be equipped to do this, so I should do it. But yeah, it's not easy. You know, parents are so indifferent about their kids, and their kids' education and steering them in the right direction. Like it's not, they just drop their kid off. It's become so normalized just to have someone else raise your children and their morals, and they don't check up at all. Sex education, history. I mean, what's right and wrong. That's how we've gotten off the rails with all this weird stuff, because we get all these activists in the classroom, which a lot of teachers are because they're soft-hearted. We're like a soft-hearted lot. It's just care. It's like toxic compassion thing. And it's bananas. It's not just like an online thing. I've seen it. I know so many educators, and it's everywhere.
Yeah, there is, in the absence of like formal historical and philosophical education, particularly bent towards understanding the virtue of past and recreating it, you just fall into one of several nihilistic traps. Typically, it's some form of collectivism, right? Because if you personally, we look out at the world and we see ourselves. This is a very difficult thing for people to understand, and I think some folks have a tendency to kind of brush it aside because they think maybe it's some form of arrogance or something. But you do see yourself in the world, and vice versa as well. So, like for example, a man who doesn't value their own life is less likely to risk it for other people, right?
Yeah.
This is a symptom of nihilism, and societies crumble when that is the case. So we see in the world what we see in ourselves. So people that are hopeless see society as hopeless. I don't think it's the other way around. I don't think that things are so bad so people feel bad. I think they feel bad about themselves, and as such they see the world poorly because things were pretty bad in the 1760s, right? And a bunch of dudes were like, fuck that. And they made a country based on 3,000 years of Western civilization. They spent the time to learn, then they went out and literally fought for it. So you're not going to convince me that because there's rough stuff going on in the world that should make me cower in my fucking basement somewhere, because history has shown that is not the case. And it is my opinion that it is a reflection of how we feel about ourselves, right?
Starts on the individual level.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense to me.
And, when the problem, you're describing a problem of in the education sphere, but really what the issue is that we're not creating tough people, good tough people anymore. Men don't turn to nihilism because they're starting to see the truth clearly. The cynic thinks they are, right? The cynic thinks, oh, I'm smarter than all these other. Look at this guy over here digging that ditch. What an idiot.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like, no, man, they turn to nihilism because they've never been educated and initiated into what being a fucking man is.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
Because like whatever relaxation you do, sitting down, waiting, not participating in whatever is killing you. It is killing you. And the most satisfied you'll ever be is when you accomplish things. That's just how we're wired. We have to be. Every animal is, right? Yeah. Like there's always going to be some kind of biological reward mechanism for accomplishment, because otherwise we would still be single-celled organisms doing nothing. You know what I mean? So, I mean, I think it's so much, it is on the surface so much deeper than just education. However, you cannot accomplish it without education. And education takes up a third of 9 months of the year for children for 18 fucking years, man. Like,
so what are they learning? Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like, what are they learning and from whom? And not just the substance of what they're learning, but the tone of it as well. And then what is being asked of them at the back end of that. So in the Army, we say task, condition, standard. Here's your task. Here are the conditions under which you will perform that task. And this is the standard to which you will perform it. And that is a very good mechanism for success, right?
Yeah.
Because not only does it give you clarity of purpose, but it also gives me the opportunity to step in and correct you when you're wrong, or after the fact say, hey, here's what you did right and here's what you did wrong, and you can go do it better next time. This is not present in the education system in America.
Yeah, I mean, clarity of purpose is a great way to put it. Excuse me. Teddy Roosevelt had a quote like, there's no greater reward than working hard at work worth doing. And it's that connection is not done for young people. And what they get is like this, because there's so much cheap dopamine. You know, there's another Ross Perot quote is, the activist isn't the one who says the river's dirty, it's the one who cleans up the river. So young people, young people are able to go out there and, you know, change their little icon or post something on social media, or they just show up at some rally with a sign and they have no idea what they're fighting for. But I had a student a couple years ago who was very leftist student who said, you know, our whole lives we were told about how the civil rights activists were heroes. And I want to be a hero. So I'm going to be an anti-racist civil rights activist just like that.
By the way, wanting to be a hero is a great thing for our culture.
Yeah.
Because for obvious reasons, right?
Yeah, absolutely. But you got to get some clarity on that. So there was a school shooting. This is a couple of years ago. There's a school shooting. I think it was the one in Parkland or something. And a bunch of the female students at my school, 11th and 12th graders, they organized a walkout. So my school was like this, you know, kind of hoity-toity private school. And they were like, yes, you go do this. So they all walked out. They skipped their algebra class or whatever, went outside and played the guitar and talked about peace and ending gun violence. And they were all like, aren't you proud, Mr. Reusch? Look at this. We're like the activists. And I was just like being a little cynical. It was all over. And they're like, why are you making that face? Why weren't you supporting us? I was like, you care about ending gun violence? I'm like, yeah. It's like, it's complicated. You're really devoted to this. Like, yeah. I was like, here's what we're going to do. I was like, I'm going to stay after school with you from 3 till 5 tonight and tomorrow and the next day and on Monday and Tuesday. And we are going to research, write legislation, then get on the phone, call our representatives and say like, hey, let's instill this. Let's do this. Let's hustle, guys. You down? And they were just like, ugh, I have volleyball practice. Oh, I got to write an essay. I was like, so you care enough about gun violence to skip algebra class, but not enough to actually do the work.
Right.
So they're not willing to do the hard work. They just want the feeling of doing the hard work. You know, they carry around the metal straw so they're saving turtles or whatever, but they're not actually doing anything.
Yeah, I carry my metal straw around to do cocaine, just to be clear.
Well, obviously,
right? That's a legitimate reason.
At least that's something I can be like, all right, respect you know, to the students. But it's really wild how they get this feeling like they're doing something, this like online activism, this like fake activism. They're not, it's really hard to bring about change. It's really difficult. And I think that they just shy away from doing that difficult work and yet feel like they're doing it. So then they get really defensive and everything. But that's something that I've seen over and over and over again.
Yeah, think about the narcissism that drives that. I mean, they've done nothing meaningful. Their brain chemistry has rewarded them for having done nothing. And the people that actually need help are standing there with their hands up like, what the fuck?
Yes.
Right? I mean, that is completely fucked. Forget about how, like, I mean, they're children, so whatever. They're hypocritical and full of shit, as we all were at that age. But think about that as the 25 or 35 or 45 or the boomers now who are swung back into this shit. You are out there doing this stuff, helping no one. There's no meaningful help being given to these people, and you feel good about it. That's very bizarre to me. And I think if you trace that back far enough, you can kind of tell that narcissism like that is a defense mechanism against feeling like you have no point or purpose or place in the world, right? It's like a fat girl that won't stop talking about how hot she is. She knows she's fat.
Yeah.
Let's be real about that. And that is just a defense mechanism. They've warped to the brain. And it's one thing to see, it's one thing to see the work product from that, which is nothing really. It's just a bunch of gibberish and nonsense and noise. But it's the thing that really upsets me about it is what it's doing to their brain. Like when you lie to yourself that much for that long, it fucks your brain up permanently, probably, right?
Yeah.
I mean, maybe you can come out of that at some point, but it feels like you're almost deprogramming being brainwashed by yourself. Nobody can stop you from brainwashing yourself. It's a very dangerous thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then when anyone presents that, they hold up a mirror to you, you get really angry and you get really defensive because it's the same thing. It's like get on the scale, to stick with your metaphor. It's like, how dare you? You know what I mean? Yeah. It's like, so it's very difficult to get through those walls that they've built up to protect their image and their false sense of self.
Sure, yeah.
But they're living in that.
But I think we're still working with wet clay. It's not dried yet because they still have that impulse to want to do something good.
That's
right?
why I like working with young people. Yeah.
I tell people this all the time. Just because you don't agree with somebody's solution to a problem doesn't mean the problem doesn't exist. And if you turn your nose up at it and behave in a cynical way, then somebody you don't like will come solve that problem in a way that you hate.
Yeah.
And you will be stuck with that decision. And I think I'm really just paraphrasing Plato when he said, if you refuse to take part in your own governance, you're doomed to be ruled by fools. Right. But that's what it is. Not just fools, but evil assholes will show up and solve a problem, right? Like we had a problem with healthcare affordability, okay? In the first 10 years of this century, 83% of all privately filed bankruptcies were a result of unpaid medical expenses. Yeah. 83% of all privately filed bankruptcies were unpaid medical expenses. Not people that were trying to start businesses, just from trying to stay healthy and stay alive. And the Republicans refused to solve that problem, or even the only thing the Republicans did was continue bolstering the private insurance market. And then the Democrats came in and doubled down on that. They pretended like they were trying to solve a problem, but all they did was create a handout system to private insurance and to welfare programs. That's it, right? And they completely fucked healthcare in this country, way worse than it already was. That's the danger of pretending like a problem doesn't exist when it clearly does.
Yeah, and instead of solving it, what happens is you have Luigi Mangione shooting someone in the back, a father on the streets, and is celebrated.
Yeah.
It's not that small of a minority that's like props to him, because he's stepping in and doing something, quote unquote, doing something, but that's not fixing anything. It's just now it's just rewarding this dangerous vigilante kind of element against someone who was just running a company.
Yeah.
But they're, guys like that are celebrated, especially if you look at like how like the younger generations are like, yeah, great job.
So what would you say are like the biggest barriers to cultivating genuine curiosity amongst these kids, especially considering all the distractions? There's a deep sense of nihilism amongst these kids as well. They think even the older one, the ones that you have taught for the last 15 years or so, like I guess the younger millennial and the Gen Z crowd, think that everybody had it perfect before I got here, and now it sucks for me, which is retarded, right? That's not at all how it worked.
Right.
But there have been booms and busts, obviously, throughout all history. But they do believe it, and it has gotten markedly worse. Like the gap between expenses and salaries have widened. There's no question about it. You can't lie about that shit. We found more and more that our government is full of shit and lying to us about literally everything. So people have they feel like they're in the dystopia right now. In reality, what they're in is just like a kind of a fog that we can get out of relatively easy, in my opinion, if people just start doing what the fuck they were supposed to do in the first place. But how do you, considering these kids are stuck in this mire with the accent, so in the 1980s, you wouldn't have had to contend with political environments inside of a fucking high school classroom. That's not a thing back then. But now there's the internet. So it is a thing, right?
Yeah.
So how do you fucking deal with all this?
I think politics were in the classroom, but it was allowed to be challenged. So you might have said like, oh, my teacher's a Republican, but you can be like, I'm a Democrat, and you can have a dialogue. And that's what's gone away, is the way that I've always cultivated curiosity is because schools have become this place where you exchange your curiosity for compliance. If you think about like what makes a good student is someone who does what they're told. So by the time COVID rolls around, these people are 25 years old. They've been conditioned for 13 years from K through 12 and then on to college to just do what you're told because, you know, like sit down when you're supposed to sit down, stand up when you're supposed to stand up, regurgitate whatever the teacher said. And then why am I doing this? Because I want to be a good person. And then if I do that, then I'll get into a good college. If I get into a good college, then I'll get a good job and then I'll be happy. And then they realize that's a lie. But they've been conditioned to just not challenge authority because that is what the bad kids do. So in my classroom now on Powder Docs, which is like my online platform, I'm trying to help these parents who don't have anywhere else to go, is you can bring anything to the table and talk about it. You can ask any questions. There's no off-limit questions. And there's a lot of off-limit questions in a traditional school, public and private schools, where you can't ask about that. That's off limits. It could be COVID, it could be gender stuff, it could be racial stuff. You know, you can't ask about like, well, why is it that so many, you know, convicted cop killers are black? Like that's an issue, okay? But you can't say that. You can't say, you know, there's a teacher in Ireland right now that's serving essentially a life sentence. I mean, about this guy Enoch Burke, who's like, he refused to follow someone's like pronouns, they, them pronouns. So he's held in contempt of court because he kept trying to show up to his job, and he's been locked up off and on for like 500 days, and he's essentially serving like until he bends the knee. And that's happened a lot. You know, I mean, there's a lot of teachers that have lost their jobs for. I knew a history teacher who was in the Bronx and she refused to get the jab. So she was fired. You know, the teacher who wanted to bring in a Glenn Lowry article and was told by his principal that you bring in a black conservative that's going to confuse the kids. Like, so these teachers see that, they go, "Oh, I don't want to get in trouble."
It's going to confuse the kids.
If you bring in a black Republican perspective,
it's going to confuse people that we're not monoliths.
Yes,
that collectivism is trash.
Yeah, Paul Rossi's story. It's unbelievable.
That's insane to me. So these are, I'm going to go back in reverse order. I don't know that story, but I'm going to go from Enoch back to the first one in reverse order and explain why the conversation is important to have, regardless of just forget about the just like platitude that we have to talk. Here are specific examples of why we need to talk. So this dude is there's three parts of this conversation. One is that he's in prison for saying words. That's fucked, right? Two is that, well, the rebuttal to a lot of this is like he keeps...
Isn't it refusing to say words? Is it compelled speech?
It's compelled
even
speech.
worse.
It's even worse. Yeah, that's what Jordan Peterson was fighting with that 16... what was it?
Yeah, the C-16 bill.
C-16, yeah. So he's refusing compelled speech. And then the leftists right now in the UK will say, well, he needs to stop showing up. It's like, okay... So now you're compelling where he can and can't go as well, and you're going to imprison him forever for it, right? That's the conversation that needs to be had because it's tennis. It's this point, and then oh shit, that's completely unacceptable. With the black crime stats stuff, again, it's a 3-point conversation. It is if you look at crime statistically, violent crime is overwhelmingly represented in the black community, overwhelmingly, right? And that's a point to make. And the second point is, well, that's racist to say. And the third point is, well, it's not actually racist because if you look at the data, excuse me, it's if you want to invoke this per capita shit like these Groyper people want to, right? Yeah. Let's do it that 0.35% of violent crime in any given year is committed by black people. It's 0.2% of the black population that commits those crimes. Okay. Right. So there are a high number of recidivists.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
And then the vast majority of everybody else. It's like 30,000 black people that are assholes, that are fucking violent criminals. And then that gets dropped into the data set with no context. This is a conversation you should have in a classroom that has white and black people inside of it, because the top level data is that black people commit all the crimes, right? And if you just look at that, that's what it looks like. And if you ask the second and third follow-up questions, you can see then that it's 0.2% of the black population committing those crimes. Not everybody. Most people are going to fucking work.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's just like, but if you're not allowed to have that conversation, you can't get to the result, which is in no way racist, and it actually shows that the racist is a fucking idiot.
100%. It's the same thing with zip codes. If you look at like gun violence in America, it's in like 5 zip codes. You take that away, and gun violence in America is like not that bad.
Yeah, we're comparable to like fucking Iceland or something.
Yeah.
After that.
Yeah.
Or Denmark. You know what I mean? Like one of the northern Scandinavian countries, which by the way don't have, except for the one mass shooting event. I think it was in Norway.
I don't know.
Back in like 2012. You remember that crazy dude? Fuck, I think it was in Norway. I don't remember. Anyways, we're like in the bottom 20% globally.
And there's a lot of guns here.
A couple of
So it's
clearly not the gun, right?
So it's not a gun issue. It's not like you said a racial issue. It's a very specific issue that makes it a lot easier to solve too. Mm. So we can solve it if we overpolice these certain areas, address even the people who are continuously committing these crimes. What is the problem? Is it these, kind of crazy DAs? Is it the lack of support? I taught in East LA in a really tough neighborhood. These kids had nowhere else to go. So I'd get there early. I'd stay late. I'd, teach them martial arts. We'd do boxing, and I'd lift weights with them because they didn't want to be on the streets. They just had nothing else to do. They didn't have dads. They didn't have anything else to do. Like, these are solvable problems. But like you said, we have to be able to have the conversation. And when you just shy away, I can't talk about race. I can't talk about gender. I can't talk about this stuff. Well, then you're never going to be able to solve the problem. And that's what's happening in schools is teachers are so scared to even touch on it, because they might say something wrong because they're overly sensitive and all that kind of stuff that we're not actually fixing it. So then we just go off to these platitudes of like essentially like social justice, critical social justice.
Well, even the way the left talks about that, they stop at the critical social justice part when there is more conversation to be had, right? Because the conversation is that people, and to me, it doesn't really matter whether it is legitimate or not, whether it's that they are being devalued and not oppressed, that's not the right word, but disenfranchised, or they just feel that way, because the result is going to be the same. To me, I don't give a shit if it's real or not, because they're kids, one, and we've got to address the ignorance. That's got to happen. However, the left will say, this is happening. Okay, fair enough. You got me. So what do we do about it? Nothing, because it's not fair. No, I'm sorry, bud. That's not how it works. You have identified what Shaw would call, it's Shaw's pathway methodology. He studied terrorists, right? And said there's probably points of interdiction in this guy's life where we can stop that from happening. And somewhere around between pre and post pubescence, right in there, probably, as the hormones are developing and the brain is starting to form right there, and again in the later teens, and then again in the 20s, right, if they make it that far. There are points, if you don't identify what the root cause is. The root cause is not social injustice. The root cause is in the individual, right?
Yeah.
Because the fact that any single individual made it out of that shows that it can be done. So that should be the goal, right? Not to upend the entire system necessarily, but to make sure that we're building kids that can survive whatever the fuck they're going to go through. So this is all a symptom of nihilism. Nihilism produces, and it's not unique to the black or brown or any other community. It happens all over the world and all through time. If people feel disenfranchised from their culture and their economy, they will create their own culture and a parallel economy, right? The Italian mob did it back in the day. It's happened so many times, it's not even worth mentioning how many times, because you can think of it in your head right now. It happens in poor Arab countries with terrorism. It happens in rich countries,
for sure, with
terrorism, in Arab countries with terrorism. It happens in rich countries with disenfranchised populations, or at least they feel that way, and it doesn't matter if it's true or not, but it is nihilism all the same. And you can fix that problem. That is, now you've identified all the problems. Okay, can't do anything about that. This is a big move. It's going to take 10 years. I can fix that kid's nihilism right now. I can fix it right now. Not literally right now, but I can work on this one kid right here and fix this problem for him, right? And if you skip past that entire conversation, then you're left, as you said, with just the social justice platitude where nothing gets changed. The only thing that changes is that district attorneys refuse to prosecute these assholes, and they just go out and victimize more people. That's it. right?
Yeah.
That is the sum of their effort from the left in the last 15 years to deal with this social justice bullshit.
Well, it's going to connect with nihilism because like when CRT, critical race theory, was like all the jam, I was talking a lot about that publicly. And the problem, there's a lot of problems with it. One big problem is it's all about identifying problems. You know, where it started in like the law schools and stuff. People were like, it's all nonsense. I don't think it's all nonsense because you can look at the war on drugs and what Nixon's advisor, John Ehrlichman, said is like, the war on drugs was specifically to lock up hippies, anti-war people, and black people, blah, blah, blah. And then you look and like certain areas are over-policed or whatever it might be. That could be. It could be, there was another Supreme Court case, Yick Wo in San Francisco. It was like trying to get Chinese laundry owners to get out of the business because they were charging less and they were like ousting all of like the native, white people in San Francisco. So they couldn't say Chinese people can't have laundromats. They said you can't have laundromats unless it's a brick building. And the cheaper buildings that the Chinese were in were like wood buildings. So it was a way to have a racist law that's not overtly racist on its front. So critical race theory can be great for that. It's like you put on these lenses. Is this racist? Where's the racism? Where's the racism? Oh, I think that's racism. Then you take the lenses off and then you go, okay, now let me see if that's actually racism. But what's happening is this critical social justice stuff is you just keep those lenses on all the time. You just point out problems all the time. You want to sink everything and destroy it, dismantle. It's like that kind of language. Just take a sledgehammer to everything that took so long to build. And then, well, what are you going to replace it with? We'll see. And it's like sinking the boat that you're in and then trying to build another boat while you're treading water. There's no actual solution. It's all just pointing out the problems. And then of course you're going to feel hopeless because it's like everything in the world sucks. Like if you just look at like all the microaggressions that are happening all around you, it's like everyone hates me. Everyone hates me. The world is so dark and you don't have any kind of way out. So it's so important to have young people be like, all right, so if this is bad, this is a bad thing. What is your solution? Get them more solution oriented, not just focused on the problem.
Yeah, not only does it have the effect of solving the problem, but it also empowers the individual. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and you can fail on solving the problem, but at least you have a purpose. Like you have a reason to get up in the morning. A lot of young people do not have a reason to get up in the morning, and they're not.
Yeah, it's weird, man. I don't know. It's hard to say if like there's so many tangled lines of philosophy, and I can't tell necessarily chicken or egg with these things because nihilism came before Marxism and postmodernism for sure, but Marxism was right on its heels. You know what I mean?
For sure.
And it's, to me, aside from the delivery, postmodernism and nihilism are almost indistinguishable, right? Because in the most important way that they're similar is that they both deny the existence of objective reality. You know what I mean? It dumps everything back onto the lived experience of the individual. Yeah. And I'm not saying that anecdotal evidence isn't important. It is. Actually, in medicine, it's one of the most important types, especially because medicine is bespoke because your body is just yours, right?
Yeah, how you're feeling matters.
Yeah. But this, I think that I think that Marxism took it a step further. So Nietzsche says that God is dead and we killed him. He was lamenting the death of religion and culture, right?
Yes.
And then Marx said God is dead. He didn't literally say this, but Marx said God is dead and it's somebody's fault. Somebody's out there and they did it to me, right? So nihilism was the original form, not the way that we experience nihilism today, but the original philosophical nihilism was like, oh, we're fucked. We fucked up. That was original nihilism. And then Marxism is like, somebody fucked us. Yeah. Right? And you went from being a responsible party to a party that has no responsibility. And everything since then, every philosophy that has sprouted from there, postmodernism, neo-Marxism, and all this stuff has been built on that structure that you personally have no responsibility for anything that happens in your life. And look at where it's gotten us. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like if you ever want to do a fucking scientific study on it, just look around. It's a complete and utter failure. And the more we get aligned with postmodernism, the more we get aligned with neoliberalism, which is coming from the right now. These people that are like, they constantly talk about power on the conservative side, allegedly. That's not conservative. Talking about seizing power at the state to use against your enemy is not conservative. Right. Conservatism is about conserving the principles that the founders gleaned from 3,000 years of Western civilization. And one of those is decentralization through both republicanism and federalism, right? I mean, it is fundamental to what we're doing here. So that they come part and parcel. And then I would say it's neo-nihilism as well, because it's not a political philosophy, or it's not a philosophy anymore necessarily. It's just like, woe is me. There's something about modern nihilism that has a postmodernist feel to it. You know what I mean?
Oh, for sure there is. And there's also this idea of zero sum in everything. So it used to be, that's old man Jenkins. He has a Rolls Royce. If you work hard, you can get a Rolls Royce too. Yeah. And now it's like, fuck old man Jenkins because he has that. Like,
but you see the difference, right? You go from a person with agency who is able to accomplish things to a person who everything is happening to.
Yeah.
I mean, that's.
But you look at any an immigrant comes to this country, they work hard and they become successful. Mm-hmm. It throws a wrench into a lot of these narratives. So you go, okay, they are successful now. Who did they screw over to become successful?
Yeah. Like the way that people talk about Elon Musk.
Yeah.
His dad owned an emerald farm.
Yeah.
That dude's dad didn't give him shit except for like some beatings from time to time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I mean, the people who say like, well, they came from a wealthy family or whatever. It's like a lot of people came from wealthy families that didn't accomplish anything.
Yeah.
So just because you had some resources, if you were given $1 million, you turned it into $1 billion enterprise, like that's still challenging to do. It still takes effort. There's a lot of people that were given a lot and just did nothing with it. So again, it's knocking people for their success. Look, Adam Smith talked pretty openly about the problems of wealth inequality. And there is a problem with that because if there's enough people on the street and a small number of people with giant, mansions with a lot of empty bedrooms and a lot of food in their cupboards, eventually they're going to say, let's hop these gates and kill these people. Like that does happen. The wealth inequality is a problem because even if the bottom is coming up as the top is coming up faster, that discrepancy can lead to instability. It gets too top heavy. So it's something that we do have to be concerned about. But it's giving, as you said, agency to the people at the bottom to how do you rise up? Like what exactly is it? And looking at the people like Jay-Z or someone like that who was from the Marxy Project and ended up, becoming a billionaire, instead of saying he's the exception, not the rule, you go, how did he do that? Like what exactly is it? But they just say like he's an anomaly. Well, let's look at the anomalies and see how they did it exactly. And what can we learn from that is what it should be. Instead of vilifying them, we vilify the successful.
Yeah.
That's an unbelievably destructive mentality for a society to vilify success and then incentivize victimhood, which is what we're doing.
Yeah, and then
it's so strange to me that's where we're at, and it's a commonplace in American schools.
Well, I think we've been cajoled in that direction intentionally, frankly. People need to understand what first, and I spend a lot of time on this. Some others spend a lot of time on this, but understanding what neo-Marxism and neoliberalism are, how to identify that shit is the first step. And then the second, I really want people to ask this question, or to understand rather why these things seek to devalue objective reality and institutions specifically. Mm-hmm. And the reason is obvious. It's so oligarchs can manipulate you, right? But that's a surface level assessment. Think about this. Why do these globalist organizations trend towards postmodernism and neoliberalism and neo-Marxism? And it's because we know they don't work. We've seen them in action. We know for a fact that they don't work. We know that collectivism doesn't work. We know especially socially for sure we know it doesn't work. But as an economic principle, we know that it doesn't work. It just produces bad outcomes. It produces good outcomes for the upper tier and horrible outcomes for everybody else. And the reason is obvious. It's because they want control. The only reason that the smartest people, richest people in the world would be using the dumbest ideology and the one that produces the poorest economic outcomes is so they can fucking force you into a system of control. That's literally the only reason they would do it. Capitalism is very clearly the better solution. Yeah. And all of history proves that. Even in feudalist societies where you had a baron or governor or somebody who promoted creativity and work ethic and personal ownership within his feudalist system, right? So instead of having serfs, he had subjects, which doesn't sound too different, but I promise you it is, who were able to earn off the land in a real way. They didn't owe him necessarily. So serfdom, you owed the lord 3 or 4 days of work a week for free, basically, just to live on his land. And then the other couple of days you could work for your own stuff, right? There were lords who promoted that and ones who wanted more for themselves, right? And discouraged that. And you can see the different results from that, right?
Yeah.
So even in a shitty system like that, you can still see how just a little bit of capitalism in there makes it work. You know
well,
what I mean?
The very root system of this country, Jamestown, it was John Smith who was like, you don't work, you don't eat. Because a lot of the colonies were very socialistic. So it's like, hey, let's just we're all in this together because we're trying to survive. So let's just like pull. And then.
I mean, the first one, the Massachusetts Bay Colony tried to set up a goddamn theocracy, right? And they kicked out, what is his name? Robert something, who started Providence, Rhode Island. I can't remember his name. Shit, it skips it evades me right now. But yeah, they weren't like. the Puritans weren't the best at governance. Let's say that, right? They would have been perfectly fine with a socialist theocracy, for sure.
Yeah, then when John Rolfe came in and was very industrious. Let's just become drug dealers. Let's grow tobacco. It was so from the very beginning of this country. It was about entrepreneurship. It was about individuals working hard. And if each individual in a collective society does their best, I mean, this is kind of Ayn Rand stuff, but like you look out for what's best for you and do your best thing, and everyone does that, then everyone kind of raises up. I mean, capitalism obviously is the best system, but we also need to institute the elements of charitable giving, philanthropy.
Yeah.
I mean, and I think that
those have to be philosophical, though, right?
Yeah,
it has to come from a virtuous people and not from the state.
Yes, it can't be something that you're controlled to do or
compelled. Yeah,
thank you.
Yeah, so like the Nash equilibrium theory, for example, I agree with it. Actually, it works just fine. However, if it's compelled by the state, it'll fucking crumble. It creates communism. If it's and we're not getting into the Nash equilibrium theory today, but basically it says instead of everybody viciously competing for the top spot, everybody should at least to some degree cooperate. And there's an algorithm about how much you should cooperate.
Yeah.
They if you watch that
movie, it's a good scene where they want to talk to the girl.
It's a good movie, but that's not exactly what the Nash equilibrium theory is. It's not like, we should just ignore all the hot blondes. That's not at all what the Nash equilibrium theory is. But there is some measure of cooperation. Obviously, what the fuck are we talking about? We're a communal species. We built all this shit to protect ourselves from the outside, right? So obviously that's the case, but it has to come from our virtue and philosophy and not from dictate from the state. Otherwise, it turns into communism inevitably.
And even in essentially a free market capitalist system, which could definitely have its problems with like manipulation once you get to the top and everything like that. But the idea is, I will sell you X product, you will pay me Y price. Do you agree on that? Like if you want to pay me for this product with the price I'm asking for it, then we agree on it and we shake hands. I mean, but government getting involved saying you can't do that. You can't. No, I want to buy that product at that price. Well, you can't. You have to charge more. You have to charge less, whatever it is. Like that's where we get into a lot of sticky situations. Capitalism gets the blame when a lot of it is, the government getting involved. I mean, I don't think there's a single like Fortune 500 company that doesn't get government subsidies.
Not that I'm aware of.
I mean, I think they all just get a ton of government money, but who doesn't get government money are small mom and pop stores because they can't afford lobbyists and all that kind of stuff. So a lot of stuff gets blamed on capitalism when it's actually the state getting involved. It's again why I teach economics. Is I think that there's a lot of young people who want to solve problems. You look at the new mayor of New York and everything. It's like free this, free that. It's like young people. And now it seems like old people too, but like young people don't understand basic economics, basic economics of resources are finite, but wants and needs are infinite. So you have to make economic choice. I mean, that's essentially what it is. And then once you understand that basic principle, then you can start to see that like things aren't just free, but they think you can just tax billionaires. Not understanding like what that even means. Like billionaires aren't just Scrooge McDuck sitting on piles of money that they could give out. It's tied up in things. A lot of it's tied up in employment. Like there's ripple effects and people don't understand that. So they have this very deep ignorance and then very strong passion. It's like the Dunning-Kruger effect. Like people are so passionate about things that they're wildly ignorant about. Guns is another one. You know, like they're so passionate about being against guns and they know nothing about guns. Like, so don't be super passionate about topics that you are ignorant about. Because then you're just it's gonna lead to, even if you have good intentions, it's gonna lead. I have a whole unit in my civics class about unintended consequences. There's so many, but young people they're destined to fall into unintended consequences that could be really catastrophic. They could be perverse unintended consequences where it actually makes the problem you're trying to solve worse because they don't know what the problem is.
Yeah. I would say if you are that tuned up about something, spend that first burst of energy learning what the fuck you're talking about. Maybe that seems like a reasonable thing to do. Because it's especially because there's this Mott and Bailey bullshit going on a lot.
Yes.
Where bad ideas are snuck into our society by politicians, and I don't know. I don't think that most of them are doing it on purpose. I think most of them just want to get elected. I don't think they're twisting their mustache in an evil way. I just think they're fucking weak and they want attention and they want power. And people that want power, one, they don't deserve it. The average person who wants power does not deserve it, and the average person who deserves it does not want it, right? But they want power, and the typical person that wants power is because they feel weak, and that is somebody who is going to abuse their power most of the time, right? So. One, it's mostly people who want power, and think about what power from weakness represents, right? Of course, it falls into this postmodernist trap because they see the world that way in this oppressor-oppressed bullshit ideology. And you know, a good example again is these weak politicians introducing bad ideas. The idea of socialism to somebody who's a hard worker won't fly ever, right? No. It can't. Yeah. It won't. And as long as they understand what it is and what the result is, they'll never believe in shit like that. But it is when and part of the whole Mott Bailey bad idea thing from politicians is that, well, I can't let them blame me, right? Because I've got to get elected. So here's this bad idea for a new program, or here's this bad idea for somebody else to blame. And it is the rich. Because typically it's not the rich that are doing this stuff. It's the state picking sides. It's usually the government choosing sides. So we've gone since 1990, from 1990 to 2013, we went from 25 primary military defense contractors down to 5. We've gone from 8 airlines down to 4. Yeah. Right? Since 2000, we've gone from 8 phone carriers down to 4, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. All the ways. So the things that are ubiquitous throughout society, travel and communication and healthcare and military spending and stuff like that, has all shrunk. And it's not because other companies weren't good at doing it. It's because the government decided to choose sides. Yeah. That's it. And then everybody is going to, and when there's no competition, prices go up. Basic economics, once again. Right. And you just, if you understood those 2 things, then your attention leaves Elon Musk and goes back to the state. And you're like, what the fuck? Yeah. Right? Because Elon Musk didn't choose to be the only person doing what he's doing. He put his fucking design for his battery for Tesla on the internet for free, so that more people would compete with him, so that the resource materials would get cheaper, because he's not a fucking idiot. Yeah. He knows how economics work, right? It drives me nuts. Yeah, I mean, people just need to understand those patterns. You know, you mentioned something about how hard workers aren't going to buy into a socialist system. One of the things that I did in my classroom for years is the communism unit that I did in my history class, I would give them a communism test. So I was like, they knew it. I was like, the end of this unit, you're going to have a test, and I'm going to pool all of your grades and divide them up equally. Now, I put caveats in there, like I wouldn't let it affect your final grade because they're worried about transcripts and stuff. But the kids who were really against it were the ones who hustled and worked hard. The ones who loved it were the lazy ones. And there were kids who there are always those kids, and this is how something like socialism, communism gets pushed. There were those kids that did study a lot, but they had learning disabilities and learning differences, and they had
whatever kinds of different things, auditory processing and dyslexia and stuff. So they would work real hard, but the best they could ever get was a C. And, there were some benevolent people who were hard workers and they were getting A+. They're like, I'll give this kid a C. But it's like, it's not going to just go to that kid. It's also going to go to the kid who's just like, all right, screw this. I'm not going to study then because I'm just going to leech off of these people. And the focus for people that are in this, like, the Mandami camp and everything like that, they're focusing on the dyslexic kid who's getting bad grades and not the kid who's just like, screw this, I'm not doing it, I'm just going to leech. And those, it's like everyone who's at the bottom of the socioeconomic hierarchy is the dyslexic kid. And that's not the case.
Yeah. No, that's the minority, actually,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And that's an issue. It's something that we always have to deal with and this is why I think this is why the system that we had originally set up before the New Deal should have been highly effective, which is to say private organizations handle that problem. Churches, for example, they're getting 501c3 status for a reason.
Yeah.
And not like most churches barely get by.
Yeah.
That's
True.
a fact, right? I mean, I would say probably 80% of churches barely get by. So this is not an indictment of them. But for those 20% of churches where the pastor's driving a new Cadillac every year, or worse, a new fucking G5 every year, that's an evil man, in my opinion, right? Not only evil, but illegal as well, because the charter for 501c3 states that to get it as a religious organization, you have to provide a public benefit outside of your charter, which means not preaching to people. You have to provide a legitimate, tangible benefit to the community around you, not in Africa, to your community. Why the fuck? We're not subsidizing churches so they can go to Africa on mission trips.
Yeah.
No, to preach to people. I don't give a fuck about that, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm glad that you should do it on your own dime. Like, if you can raise money to do that, you should definitely go spread your message to people, because I don't think it's a negative message or anything like that. However, if there is one hungry mouth in your fucking community, that is an indictment of you, right? And you should have your 501c3 status pulled immediately.
Yeah, my church is in Chatsworth, California, and they do a drive-through pantry. And they just, no questions asked. You pull up, they're not preaching, they're not, just fill up your car with a week's worth of groceries. It's incredible. And I've never given to it. I'm kind of new to faith, but like I've never given to a church before, but that's like so clear. And then when
100%,
when the SNAP benefits ended, it went from 450 cars to like 950 cars. It's like, well, that's who should pick up. They picked up the slack when the government wouldn't do it, because government's going to screw up just about everything that they do. So the communities should be doing that work. When they don't, when they're buying private jets and Cadillacs and Rolls Royces and stuff, then that community is desperate. I think that there's a lot of, if people are going towards government to solve problems when the individuals and the communities aren't solving the problems. If they were able to solve the problems, then maybe the government wouldn't have as much of a foothold to get in. But it's so interesting too, how pastors can be up there reading about how Jesus would call the religious leaders hypocrites for, their luxurious living and not serving the people, and then go out, and it's so direct. I mean, it's unbelievable how much that connects with like a lot of these, whatever they call them, like prosperity pastors and stuff that are out there today.
Word of faith.
Yeah, it's unbelievable.
Word of faith movement is what it was coined. I don't know who coined that phrase, but basically it's like, and again, please, for the love of God, pick up a fucking history book.
Yeah.
Like the Bible, for example, because their premise is that Jesus was rich, that the bag that was carried was filled with money, which is why they, of course, had to feed an entire crowd with a couple of fish and some bread, because they were rich, right? Like, get the fuck out of here.
Kind of missing the point.
I think it was Copeland who said, remember that guy?
Kenneth Copeland.
COVID-19, that fucking dude. Don't you ever say that again. He's a fucking psychopath. He was the one that said that Jesus was a rich man and you can be too. It's like, oh, okay. I mean, I think that Jesus is I've said this a lot, especially recently, but the story of a perfect man, right? The perfect, specifically not human being, but man specifically, right? So strong, but not tyrannical, and empathetic and kind, but not weak.
Yes.
Like, it's the perfect intersection, right, of a male human being. But wealthy, in the sense that I consider myself to be wealthy right now, yes, he was.
Yeah.
Right?
He said the Son of Man has no place to rest his head. Yeah. He said, like, I'm homeless, basically.
Yeah. But that's like, man, just please. A lot of the antidote to this stuff is just basic finance, basic economic understanding, basic understanding of history. A little bit more. I think you owe yourself and your country and the people that came before you and the people that come after you a little bit more attention than a basic understanding of American history. And when I say American history, I mean the history specifically, forget about even the last 100 years, the history of our Constitution.
Yeah.
From the Greco-Roman tradition to the Hebrew Christian tradition, through the Middle Ages and the Reformation and Enlightenment and the Scottish Enlightenment more specifically, and understand why we made the decisions we did, why the things that you think are a good idea have failed. For example, the libertarian crowd wants nothing. And it's like, well, we did it. It was called the Articles of Confederation. It was a fucking failure, right? We almost lost New York to the French because we were fucking around up there and they couldn't raise tax revenue to raise an army. All this stuff is stupid. The things you believe are dumb. That doesn't make you dumb. It makes you ignorant. But here is a pathway to be unignorant, to be informed, as they say. So please, for Christ's sake, do it. Please just spend some time understanding this stuff, because all of the bad ideas that these shitbag politicians come to you with, you can immediately see through them. You can immediately see through them like, no, you're not only is that dumb, but you're dumb. And you don't deserve my attention, much less my fucking vote.
Yeah, I mean, the name of my online education platform is Patterdocs. And the idea is like Docs' belief in patterns and pattern recognition. And I can cover U.S. history in 30 40-minute classes, but you just get the surface level, and then there's a lot of like resources and stuff underneath it. But like, if you just know the basics of these patterns happening over and over and over again, when the Russia-Ukraine things, like, why don't you trust the American narrative about that war? It's like, we lied to get into so many wars. Like, it's unbelievable how, like, from weapons of mass destruction to the Gulf of Tonkin, like, that's blatantly lies.
Yeah.
The Spanish-American War with the USS Maine getting blown up, all the way back to the Revolutionary War with the silver etching that Paul Revere did for the Boston Massacre. Like, he wasn't even there, apparently, and it just shows like a firing line, and that's not the way it went down. So there's this war propaganda to get people fired up to get into a war over and over and over again. When you see that, at the very least, just be skeptical. But people aren't understanding that, and that's why I just want to show these people the patterns over and over again. And I don't have an ego that says I have all the answers. It's actually been my superpower as an educator, is when people say things that I don't understand, I'm like, I don't know. So let's go on a journey together in the classroom. Let's like figure this out, because I don't have all the answers. But my ego is not connected with being the smartest guy in the room. It's not with having the right answers. It's with getting to the right answers. So if I'm wrong, and Dan, you're like, well, actually, Will, you're wrong on this one. Your eyes perk up. I'm like, oh, let's go. All right, how am I wrong? Because so many people out there want to protect their bad ideas with walls and get super defensive, where I am constantly seeking disconfirmation, because I think it's a fast track to get to the right answers, to have the wrong answers.
Yeah, get the no's out of the way.
Yeah.
It's a smart move. Paul Revere is not the guy that rode all the way either. It was a guy named Israel Bissell.
Okay.
Yeah, it's like the vacuum cleaner, by the way. But that just doesn't roll off the tongue, does it?
Yeah. So, the British are coming, guy?
Yeah. I agree with all that. So there's a lot of people doing stuff. A lot of my friends are working in this industry. I don't really work in the industry. I just kind of like talk to my people about
Which
it
industry?
Mostly. Like education.
Oh, yeah?
Specifically.
Oh, cool.
Trying to like course correct a little bit, because the national education is the administrative state over the over the nation's education is completely fucked. Even right now under Trump, they're not doing anything that they should be doing.
And the unions are really powerful, and it's basically a pack for the Democrats.
Yeah. I mean 98%.
Yeah.
98% in every year. I mean, I wrote, like, I'm in the middle, I've written it, but it's in the middle of publishing right now, a 30-part series on the entire history of the Constitution. Some of it's a little bit more in depth than the rest, but it's like from the people and philosophies, why they failed or succeeded, what we learned from them, how it like built over time. You know what I mean? Like the idea that some of these ideas started in antiquity. So Cicero talked about property rights and natural law, right? A long time before John Locke came around, fucking 1,500 years, 1600 years, 1,600 years before Locke came around. The Jews talked about the idea of human dignity, like the individual's rights. They were the first ones to really articulate it in a meaningful way, because what they said was, and they did it in a religious sense, but what they said was that every man as an individual has the right to stand before God on his own, right? And that applies to the poor person, and it applies to the king just the same. And then, of course, you get a bit of an upgrade on this in 1215 with the Magna Carta, where the barons say the king is subject to the law too, not just us. Now, they meant by just us, they meant the barons only, right?
Right.
But then you get the
It's got to start somewhere, though.
Yeah, but then you get the English Bill of Rights. You get an agreement of the people from the levelers and all this stuff they built. And we know that the reason that we prefer decentralization is because power corrupts. So we want it as small as possible, right? But we also know from the libertarian side, or to as a bulwark against anarcho-capitalism, that we tried that with the Articles of Confederation, and it doesn't fucking work, right? So we know that we're in the middle somewhere, and it's a matter of negotiating exactly where in the middle and on which issues we should be. And that's the end. Like we are relitigating stuff right now that needn't be relitigated. And it's wasting fucking time, and it's creating noise that allows these bad actors to come in and put policies into place that fuck us all over and extract wealth from the population, which is what government does. I tell people this a lot. Don't be mad at the government for doing what governments do. Be mad at yourself and all the rest of us for not doing what we're supposed to do.
Yeah.
Right? Because that's what you can actually fucking control.
The language of the Constitution is so clear. It's the executive branch, or like Congress does not have the right to do this. They can't do this. They can't do this. This shall not be infringed. I have told students for a long time, it's like the difference between you want to go to a party on Friday night. Mom, Dad, can I go to the party on Friday night? And then they go, yeah, you can go to the party. All right. Mom, Dad, can I go to the party on Friday night? Well, we can't stop you from going to the party. Now, you go to the party either way, but one of them, the power is in them, and the other one, the power is in you. And they can't, and that's what liberty is all about. It's not, it's a restriction of excessive government control. And when people understand that, they think that like the Constitution gives you the right to have a gun or gives you the right, like, no, those are God-given or natural laws that the government can't stop you from doing. And just understanding that language different, they say, well, the result's the same. Even if the result's the same, how you get there really matters. And that's like something I just drill into my students' head over and over and over again, that the government doesn't give you the right to say what you can say. It just can't stop you from doing it. And that change is really, really important, because there's so many people, there's politicians all the time that say things that are totally against what the Constitution says. But also, like, the Constitution is getting violated left and right, and then there's no follow through. Like, you would probably know stuff better than I do. Like, the stuff that Snowden revealed was seen as unconstitutional, and then it's just continuing, right? So there's like a lot of examples like that.
It's not
because people are just too busy following up on what the Kardashians are doing. It's the circus and bread thing. It's just like keep people distracted thing, as opposed to like actually focusing on stopping it. And so the governments go, all right, we can kind of get away with whatever we want.
Yeah, I mean, I would recommend, if you're going to start anywhere, if you don't have time to go back through all of the history, just do some in-depth research on the Constitutional Convention itself, because you'll hear the debates. You'll hear the debates. You'll hear the complaints about the Articles of Confederation. You'll hear the Federalists and Anti-Federalists state their cases very plainly, right? And if you want to go read the Federalist Papers as well, because I think they're important. But the Articles of Confederation taught our founders that liberty without structure collapses, just as structure without liberty corrupts. That's a very important point, right? Of all the points you take out of this show today, that's the one that you should understand the most, because we would call it, in every other facet of the physical world, we might call it homeostasis, right? But in politics, it's not about neutrality, it's about balance.
Balance,
right?
Yes.
And they needed a political form. We needed a political form that honored all the stuff that we had learned. And they articulated that. And there was a big debate the anti-federalists did not want a constitution because they thought it would make a king.
Right.
They knew it would. They knew it would make a king, which is very interesting. And because of that, because they had that reservation, George Washington showed up, and it's one of the most meaningful things that ever happened in American history that nobody knows about. He showed up at the Constitutional Convention and didn't say a fucking word the entire time, because he knew if he did, everybody would agree with him, because that's how much power he had, right? And the anti-federalists, God, was it George Mason said he would rather cut his hand off than put it on that Constitution to sign it. And then they said, well, here's what we'll do. We'll write this Constitution to sort out our government and our laws, and then we'll write a Bill of Rights that restricts even that Constitution. And they're like, all right, fine, we'll do it. And that's how it happened. That's how it happened. Yeah. People pretend like we're in some new era political tumult. Like these dudes weren't literally going out into the field and shooting at each other.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? But these people who were diametrically opposed on certain things were able to have a conversation and say, you know what, you're right. We do need this structure, but along with this structure comes these fucking guarantees that government has no right any further than what this says right here.
Yeah.
And everybody agreed on it.
And civil discourse is crucial in doing that, is working through the ideas and compromises. You give a little bit, you don't get everything you want, but either do they, but you get some and you get enough, and you come to this agreement. And so much, I mean, that's how we got the bicameral legislature that we have, is through these compromises, all these compromises.
And we fucked that up, by the way.
The
and
Connecticut Compromise?
Yeah, we fucked that up big time. The bicameral Congress, I mean, when we changed the way that the Senate got elected, we completely ruined. There's no point in a bicameral Congress anymore.
With the 16th?
17th.
17th, yeah.
Completely pointless now.
Yeah.
But whatever, still.
Still,
we had a good run.
Yeah, and that came later. But the need to have conversations, and what's so interesting to me is, like, on social media, everyone's on social media, and these political like echo chambers. We have access to learn from so many different viewpoints, and yet we use it just to get more of this like masturbatory, you're right, we're all in this together, like thing, as opposed to reaching out and talking to people. Like, I want to have conversations. That's why I started my podcast and everything. Is like, I want to have conversations with people I disagree with, because there's something to learn, even if they're out of their minds. Like, there's something to learn about why they're out of their minds. But just by getting curious and trying to find understanding, and we just don't have that civil discourse anymore across political. People don't talk to their relatives anymore. If you look at like dating statistics, people are more open to date outside of their race, but not outside of their political affiliation. Like, I was more on the left. My wife was more on the right. She was an immigrant. I was like from America, like all this stuff.
There are no liberals in the Philippines, I don't think.
she's like, her mom is like hardcore MAGA, because they're an immigrant.
Yeah.
They came here with nothing. There were 10 of them in a 1-bedroom apartment. They just like hustled and hustled and hustled. So, but in doing that, it's like, well, the person I love most on this planet thinks differently than me on a lot of these issues. So there must be something to it, someone I deeply respect. So in that dialogue, when people said they won't date someone who thinks differently, like some core values for sure, I understand that. But like on a lot of other things, I think it's important to have friends that you disagree with on, that you can have that like robust kind of debate, and kind of, not that you'll change your mind, but at the very least, maybe you'll just like understand why people think what they do. But now we just build these caricatures of them as they are this crazy thing, as opposed to interacting. People just don't want to talk to each other.
Before the right before the Constitutional Convention, if you can see it in his private notes. It was like a week or two before the Constitutional Convention. James Madison wrote that the crisis is arrived, and we must decide if we are to be a nation or 13, right? And we've arrived again, I think, right? At this point, because there's just so much of this nonsense going on, and understand that we can diagnose and fix problems. We have the nice thing about being in the United States, structurally speaking, everything is good about being here, frankly, right?
Yeah.
But a little gratitude might be in order for some of you people that did nothing to deserve this, frankly. But
where else are you gonna? I mean, it's not perfect, but what country is better?
Yeah, I mean, it's fucking ridiculous.
You know what I mean?
But it might be a good idea now to get back into this a little bit. Understand that you have a self-correcting apparatus at your disposal. And that self-correcting apparatus needs only your attention and your virtue, right? That's all you have to contribute. You don't have to fucking try to start a civil war, for fuck's sake. I mean,
Bill Clinton had a quote like that. There's nothing wrong with America that can't be fixed by what's right with America.
Yeah. It's 100% true. Yeah. I mean, it's like, what the fuck are you talking about, man? We have allowed ourselves, through our lack of virtue and our laziness, to be captured by a political class. That's it. That's literally all it is. And it is it is not going to be easy or quick. Certainly neither of those two things. But now's the perfect opportunity, because you have a bull in a china shop in the presidency right now, right? There might not be another time better than the next 3 years to accomplish some of the stuff virtue-wise, to reintroduce government to fear, right? Real fear. I don't mean the fear of violence. I mean the fear of losing their importance, which is what they really fear. They don't fear violence.
It seems like that's what
they really fear.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's like in that direction. There's enough people.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of that the left and the right can agree on certain things. They just have to work together to do that. And, you look at Congress and insider trading, and there's all these things that we actually agree on. So let's focus on the stuff we agree on, not the stuff that we don't. If we can focus on the things that we all agree on, looking up at the people who are in positions of power, who are abusing that power, then we can work together. But as soon as we start working together, they're going to go, "Oh, that's a threat. What can I do to minimize that threat?" And try and just throw some sort of wedge between the people. Because that's, again, what's kind of always happened throughout history. So people just need to be aware of that.
Yeah. That's why you need good leadership, right? You need good and vocal leadership, and not necessarily in government, but I mean in the philosophical sense, because that's the tennis that happens. It is groups of people, absent provocation, come together around an idea, and then groups of people, or smaller groups of people, and oligarchies try to disrupt that however they can, right? And the only thing that holds that coalition together is good leadership, saying, "Hey, that guy's trying to divide you. Don't let him," right? And it's probably it's good that we have these long form discussions now, but there's also a lot of noise out there of postmodernists and post-liberals, and definitely horseshoeing around on each other, because they team up on a lot of stuff these days, right? Mostly, like there's some ideological team up where they don't necessarily agree with each other because they're on opposite ends of it. But one of them is to capture state power.
Yeah.
The left has always wanted to do it. The post-liberal right wants to do it now. And I see it in people like J.D. Vance, for example. There's like a 3-minute video of him in different town halls and meetings and interviews over the last like 3 or 4 years, talking about how we need to capture state power and use it for our own intent. Like, no, motherfucker. No. You say you're a conservative. That means that you want to decentralize that state power. Otherwise, do not call yourself a conservative.
Yeah.
Right? That's not what that means. That's not your conservative doesn't mean nothing. It literally means to conserve the system of government that our founders discovered. They didn't fucking create it. They discovered it.
Yeah.
From analysis of 3,000 years of history. That's what a conservative is, right? So we got to be very careful about this, because some of it sounds attractive, because they will talk about so-called conservative values, and what they mean is social conservatism, right? But they pepper in socialist ideas, postmodernist and post-liberal ideas of power and shit like that. If somebody talks about power a lot, you should be very suspicious of that person.
For sure. Yeah. Well, it's easy but they're saying that because, like, well, if the left is capturing this, it feeds into that, like, well, we can't have the left take over this, as opposed to, we can instill the states with the ability to have individuals keep the government out of their lives, and then those states will flourish if the government stays out of their lives. Just through more block grants as opposed to categorical grants and stuff. Like Reagan did a little bit of that, like was a de-evolution revolution and stuff in the 80s, is just giving a little bit more power to the states. There was something during Trump's first administration where COVID was like, it would have been a great time to just capture a lot of power, and he let the states kind of do their thing. And I thought that was when I was kind of defending him during that time, when people said he was a dictator, I was like, there was a great opportunity to collect a lot of power.
I mean, despite having been a Democrat his whole life, Trump is a literal conservative.
Yeah.
right?
Seems like it, yeah.
Which is an odd thing to hear. Right. Because that's not how we've been conditioned to think about those
Probably
things.
Because he's a business guy. He knows like the idea of just like stay out of my business.
Delegate.
Yeah.
Just as a principle, and this is me as a military guy, but also me as a political philosopher talking. If your enemy has created a weapon and that they use against you and you're able to take control of it, and there's any possibility they may take that weapon again, you fucking destroy the weapon. That's the only reasonable solution.
It's rare. I mean, because like with the after 9/11, there was the Patriot Act, and Obama was talking about the dangers of that, and supporting whistleblowers. Then he gets in power. Mm-hmm. Like, I mean, after World War II, with Truman and Eisenhower, like there was such a concentration of power from the Great Depression into World War II from FDR, and then they get into power. It's like, oh, this is kind of nice. It's like, oh, all right. Like, I'm going to keep running because they believe, I do think at the end of the day, even if they want power, politicians believe that their solutions are the right solutions. So give me that weapon. I'll use it for a benevolent cause. When my predecessor used it for evil, I'll use it for good. So I'm not going to destroy the weapon because I need it to do all the good. And that's what happened when we went from Bush to Obama, who really, like, as far as like foreign policy goes, was pretty similar, right? I mean, it's pretty.
He was not just foreign but domestic. Aside from Obamacare specifically, if you consider the security state and the war on terror, hard to tell them apart. Yeah, frankly, right?
Yeah, using the Patriot Act, not really for how many terrorists are found in the Patriot Act compared to how many drug dealers?
I don't know any terrorists that are found,
but a lot of the drug dealers were.
Yeah. Certainly, the successes in the intelligence community often go unnoticed. So let's.
That's probably true.
It's easy to sample on the dependent variable there, but still, it was also used against like ordinary Americans, like the Tea Party, for example. Which is not super great. I thought the Tea Party was a very. I don't like populism. I think it's dumb. I know that's a popular thing these days, but like popular opinion surrounding personalities doesn't work as a political philosophy, and that's what populism is. People talk about, he said this guy's it's popular versus popular. That we're in an age of populism. Maybe you should learn what words mean, right? And what the social and political impact of accepting that kind of stuff was, because we're in a situation with it now. Technically speaking, Trump is a populist. He happens to be a good one, right? Mm-hmm. But if we gauge our political interest based on him, then we'll choose the next guy based on how like Trump he is in the populist sense, not how like Trump he is in the fucking legislative sense. And that is a fucking problem.
Yeah, right? I mean, our founding fathers were very clear about that, like the dangers of a demagogue. Mm-hmm. I mean, because again, like we've been talking in this whole conversation, is like this is nothing new. So if we've seen this before, then we can go, okay, let's not go down this road. But people still do. You get caught up in the us versus them. You get caught up in the Trump's hilarious, he's entertaining, it's all that kind of stuff. Plus the media love him because he just gets clicks and he gets eyeballs. So was it Les Moonves said Trump might be bad for America, but he's good for NBC or whatever he said. There's a lot of that going on. You know.
Well, hopefully people will open their eyes a little bit. I think there's a big the counterculture right now is conservatism. And I mean actual conservatism, not what we call social conservatism necessarily, but people, they're like, hey, whoa, pump the brakes. Yeah. We are a country that enjoys republicanism and federalism for a reason. We have made decentralization foundational to our way of life for a reason. Here's the reason. Please look at the reason, because it gets bad if we don't do this. And
there are young people that are moving in that direction, which is nice. It's just, there are also a lot of young people that are out of their minds. But you also mentioned that the No Kings rally was a lot of old people, a lot of boomers.
Yeah, I talked to Adam Smith from Washington, congressman from Washington, about this, and he thinks those people are just like hippies from the 60s and 70s who never got their win. And now they're retired and it's like, well, I'm going to go fight again.
Yeah, they think like the Democrats were like the Democrats of the time, and they're like they think like civil rights is like it's just they're kind of stuck in that idea. They don't see how like the parties have changed. And,
well, hopefully the work that you and others are doing will be of some benefit. Tell people about the school.
Yeah, so it's just an online platform for, especially for homeschool parents, but I have families from around the country who just come on. I have a civics course. I address like how wokeness got started and stuff. I go into the Constitution a lot of like just understanding the rights and responsibilities of American citizenship. I have a U.S. history course. I have a basic economics course, and then I have an apologetics course too for people who are trying to understand logical reasoning for faith. I have a sociology course to watch Simpsons episodes and then point out like the sociological elements of that. So it's called Patterdox, PATTERDOX.com, and it's just a resource for families that are looking for a lot of the stuff that we're talking about. Because I was looking left, looking right, and there was not a lot out there. So I was like, all right, then I got to build it.
Good. Well,
yeah.
And the podcast?
Cylinder radio. It's the idea of a cylinder, like it's a circle or it's a rectangle. It's like different viewpoints. So I've had 9 transgender people on the podcast. I've had super woke people, super conservative people. You know, I'll bring on anybody. I think that we need to have more civil discourse. So I love just trying to understand different people, and that's the podcast. Yeah.
Cool. Well, you guys check out Cylinder Radio, and if you are in the market for some curriculum for your homeschool, check out Patterdox. Sounds like something I would be into.
Yeah, man.
Thanks for coming today. I appreciate the time, man.
Appreciate it, Dan. Thank you.
Thank you all for listening. This has been Citizen.